Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to visualize a very specific moment. It's a moment that I think almost everyone listening has felt probably in the last week, maybe even today.
Oh, definitely.
Right. So picture this. It's 6 p.m. You've just pulled into your driveway or your parking spot. You kill the engine. The radio cuts out. And suddenly it's just silence.
Just that dead quiet.
Yeah. You're staring at the garage door or the bumper of the car in front of you, and you know you should get out. You need to get out. I mean, dinner needs to be made, the dog needs walking, the emails are piling up, but you just
sit there.
You just sit there, resting your forehead against the steering wheel, just listening to the engine tick as it cools down.
Yeah, that ticking sound. We all know that exact feeling.
We really do. And if someone knocked on the window and asked you, hey, what's wrong? Are you sad? Are you in a crisis? You'd probably say no, because it's not depression. It's not a panic attack.
Wait.
It is a crushing physical weight. And today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly what that weight is. We're looking at a really fascinating stack of materials centered around the work of Jamie Thornberry and his book, The Given Self.
Such an incredible book.
It really is. And Thornberry argues that this feeling, the specific modern exhaustion we're talking about, it isn't because you're working too hard at your job.
Right. It's not about burnout in the traditional, corporate sense. It's not about a lack of sleep. Thornberry calls it the exhaustion of authorship.
The exhaustion of authorship. Man, that is such a heavy phrase.
It is.
Let's unpack that immediately, because I feel like that's the hook. That's the core of everything we're talking about today.
It really is the hook. The core premise here is that for the first time in human history, we have basically told individual human beings that they are the sovereign architects of their own reality.
Like we're the absolute center.
Exactly. We've said to you, you are the center of the universe. You define your own meaning. You define your own truth. And, we think that's freedom.
It sounds like freedom.
It sounds great on paper. But Thornberry argues that when you tell a human being to hold up their own universe, you aren't liberating them. You're crushing them.
Because we just aren't built to be structural supports.
We aren't the foundation. We're humans. But we're trying to be the foundation. And that trembling you feel in your arms when you're leaning against the steering wheel at 6 p.m., that's not weakness.
What is it then?
That's structure failure.
Yeah.
You are holding something incredibly heavy that has absolutely no handles.
Holding something heavy with no handles. That image really stuck with me from the reading. You're trembling because the object was never meant to be held that way.
Right.
And Thornberry's core premise, and I think this is the big aha moment right off the bat, is that the heavy object is us. It's our own identity. We're exhausted because we have to constantly invent ourselves from scratch every single day.
And this is where Jamie Thornberry contributes something genuinely original to the conversation. He is fundamentally challenging the entire modern therapeutic framework that we all live in.
Which is huge.
It's massive. Because usually we ask, how do I cope with this stress? What's the life hack? But Thornberry's asking, wait, is the very way we view reality the actual source of the stress?
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that exact argument. Because he's calling for a major shift. He wants us to move from quote-unquote therapy back to ontology.
Which I know sounds incredibly technical.
Yeah, ontology is a heavy philosophy word.
It is, but stick with us because it's actually a very grounding concept. It simply means moving from asking what helps me cope to asking what is actually true.
What is real?
Exactly.
Right. And we're going to get into why this isn't just academic philosophy. It's vital for social flourishing and for positive growth.
Essential for it, really.
We're going to look at how we drifted so far away from the foundations of reality.
Yeah.
And Thornberry actually has this great, incredibly sarcastic line about our education system.
Oh, I love this part.
He notes that instead of teaching foundational reality, we basically went in search of with Leonard Nimoy regarding our understanding of humanity.
It is such a perfect, biting reference.
It really is. And we are going to dig into that a bit later because it's just a perfect snapshot of where we went wrong. We got lost chasing mysteries and myths instead of just looking at the solid reality right in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for everyone listening, here is the roadmap for today. We're going to cover the therapeutic turn, then the concept of the given self, the reality of moral gravity, and finally, how to actually find rest by accepting our limits.
Let's jump right into the diagnosis then, because we have to ask, why are we so tired?
Yeah, let's start there.
To understand this massive fatigue, Thornberry argues you have to look at history. You have to understand the major cultural shift from discovery to construction.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
Because I think most of us listening just assume identity is something we build, like a resume. That's just the water we swim in.
It is the modern default.
Yeah.
But historically speaking, for almost all of human existence, identity was received. It wasn't built.
Received, like a gift or an inheritance.
Exactly. Imagine you were born in, say, the year 1400. You were born into a specific family, a specific place, a certain custom, a religion. These things were just the background you stood on.
The ground beneath your feet.
Right. You didn't wake up every morning in a panic, having to invent the core concept of who you were from thin air.
It was a given. You were the blacksmith's kid. You lived in this specific village in the valley. You went to this church. That was that.
That was that. Now, was life incredibly hard back then, obviously? There was rampant disease, crushing poverty, oppression. I mean, it wasn't a utopia.
No running water.
Right. But, and this is a crucial distinction, there was almost no existential fatigue. You didn't have to wake up and ask yourself, who am I today? What is my personal brand? What is my ultimate, authentic truth?
But the modern shift has completely flipped that script. Now, identity is entirely constructed. We're told from day one, you can be absolutely anything. Don't let anyone else define you.
Which, when you hear it, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like the ultimate liberation. I am the master of my fate.
But isn't it? I mean, playing devil's advocate here. I can quit my job today, move to Bali, become a yoga instructor, or I could stay and try to become a tech CEO. That feels like real freedom. Why does Thornberry say it actually feels like a burden?
He calls it the burden of self-creation. Think about the actual daily mechanics of it. If you are the sole creator of your own meaning, then you have to constantly, relentlessly justify your own existence.
Oh, wow.
Every choice you make isn't just a simple choice anymore. It becomes an existential referendum on who you fundamentally are.
Give me a concrete example of that. How does that play out on a random Tuesday for someone listening?
Okay, let's take your career. In the received world, your job was likely determined by your family trade or your social class. You just did it. It was work.
You baked the bread because your dad baked the bread.
Right. But today, your job is supposed to be an expression of your deepest soul. So if you choose a career, you have to constantly ask, does this align with my authentic self? Does this project the exact image I want the world to see?
It's so much pressure.
And if the job goes bad, it's not just a bad job anymore. It's a failure of you as a person. Because you wrote the script. So if the movie sucks, it's 100% your fault.
That is heavy. It's like, if I choose this partner or even this weekend hobby, does it align with my brand? Does it fit the me that I'm currently building?
Precisely. The self has to act as both the building and the foundation at the exact same time. It's physically impossible. Thornberry uses this great analogy of trying to lift yourself up off the ground by pulling on your own arms.
You can't do it.
You can't. And the primary symptom of trying to do it, of living this way, is what he calls chronic vigilance.
Chronic vigilance. Okay, that perfectly explains the scene in the car we started with.
Exactly.
You're sitting there, hands on the wheel, constantly monitoring yourself. Is this authentic? Is this really me? Am I happy enough right now? Am I maximizing my potential? The self basically turns inward to monitor, not to actually reflect.
It's like having an aggressive security guard inside your own head, constantly checking your ID. Are you really you? Are you sure?
It's completely exhausting.
It's draining. And that leads us directly into the next major concept Thornberry introduces, which is the therapeutic turn. This is a crucial part of his whole diagnosis.
Let's get into that.
Because it's not just about individual psychology, it's about how our entire culture has fundamentally changed its language over the last few decades.
I found this part of the source material absolutely fascinating. He talks about how we essentially stopped using moral language entirely and replaced it with clinical language.
Right. Think about how we describe bad or harmful behavior today. We largely stopped saying someone's actions are wrong or wicked or unjust. Instead, we started saying they are struggling. We replaced the word destructive with unhealthy.
Now, hold on a second. I'm going to push back a bit here. Isn't that actually a good thing? I mean, isn't it more compassionate to say someone is struggling rather than just labeling them as wicked? It feels so much less judgmental.
It absolutely feels nicer. And to be fair, Thornberry actively acknowledges that the therapeutic revolution brought some very real gifts. It gave us a vocabulary to talk about trauma and mental health and our inner lives in ways we simply couldn't before.
Right, which is vital.
It is. But, and this is his massive caveat, he argues there's a hidden, devastating cost to this shift. The ultimate goal of trying to understand a human being changed. It shifted from finding truth to merely reducing distress.
Okay, wait, so the barometer for whether an idea is good is this true anymore, but rather does this make you feel better in the moment?
Exactly. And philosophically, that is a massive category error because a belief can be incredibly soothing but be completely objectively false.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Thornberry uses a medical analogy. Imagine you go to a doctor with a compound fracture in your leg. The bone is sticking out, you're bleeding everywhere.
Ouch, okay.
If that doctor operates on a purely therapeutic model where reducing your immediate distress is the only goal, what do?
Well, they give me a ton of morphine.
They give you morphine to stop the pain. Maybe they put a nice warm blanket over your leg so you don't have to look at the gory bone. And they sit there, hold your hand, and say, you're doing great. Your leg is perfect just the way it is. Your feelings are valid.
I mean, in that specific moment, I'd probably really appreciate the morphine and the blanket. But if he doesn't actually set the bone...
If he doesn't set the bone, that doctor is being wildly negligent. Setting the bone hurts. It causes intense distress. But it aligns the leg with reality. It aligns it with its ontology so it can actually heal properly.
Wow.
Thornberry argues that we have become a culture that eagerly hands out morphine, endless affirmation, validation, but absolutely refuses to set the bone because we are terrified of the pain of truth.
That is the perfect analogy right there. It's putting a flimsy bandage on a broken bone just because setting it would be uncomfortable. We are prioritizing immediate temporary relief over deep structural reality.
And this leads to Thornberry's central rallying cry, ontology before therapy.
Okay, let's define ontology again for the listeners, but let's keep it really simple. No dense textbook definitions.
Simply put, ontology is just a fancy word for asking, what is it? If I hold up a coffee cup, ontology asks, is this fundamentally a cup? Therapy, on the other hand, asks, how does the cup feel about being a cup?
That's a great distinction.
Thornberry is saying we must know what a human actually is, our fundamental ontology, before we can possibly know what true healing looks like. You can't fix a broken car engine if you have no idea how an engine is supposed to work. And you can't heal a human being if you falsely believe they are a self-creating God.
Which brings us right to the title of his work, The Given Self. If we aren't these self-creating sovereign gods holding up the universe, what are we? What exactly does Thornberry mean by givenness?
It starts with the most irreducible, undeniable fact of your entire life. You did not choose to exist.
Boom. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with that. I certainly didn't fill out an application form in the void to be born.
You didn't choose your birth. You didn't choose your specific biology. You didn't choose the era of history you landed in. You didn't choose your native language or your parents.
It's a massive, staggering list of things that just happened to us.
He even points out you didn't choose your basic moral instincts, the visceral things that make you cringe when you see an act of cruelty. That's why you're in. Thornberry calls all these things the givens.
The givens.
The profound implication here is that we are situated. We are creatures. We are not creators ex nihilo. We don't create from absolutely nothing. We arrive as guests in a world that is already running, filled with rules and structures that were here long before we showed up.
And this is exactly where that brilliant in search of reference comes back in. I want to spend a minute on this because it's funny, but man, it cuts deep regarding how we view positive growth today.
Oh, definitely.
Thornberry argues that our entire education system, and really our whole modern culture, deliberately drifted away from teaching these foundational facts. We abandoned ontology.
Yes, the Leonard Nimoy reference. For any younger listeners out there, In Search of was this wildly popular TV show back in the 70s, hosted by Spock himself, Leonard Nimoy.
Right.
And it was a show entirely dedicated to finding bizarre mysteries. Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, ancient aliens, the lost city of Atlantis.
Lots of grainy, blurry footage and spooky synthesizer music.
Exactly. And Thornberry makes this sarcastic but devastating point. He says our entire approach to human education and development turned into a version of that cheesy TV show.
We started treating human identity as this bizarre alien cryptid that we had to hunt down in the woods.
Right. We started teaching kids the real you is hidden deep inside. It's a profound mystery. You have to go on this epic, lifelong quest to find your true self.
Unlock your hidden potential. Discover the secret. Authentic you. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and Thornberry says we went looking for these Leonard Nimoy-style mysteries when the most important grounding truths were the boring, obvious ones right in front of our faces.
We have gravity. We have bodies that age and break down. We have families we didn't pick.
Exactly. He argues forcefully that we have to return to reality. We have to stop searching for mystical aliens and start looking at the actual floor we're standing on.
Speaking of the floor, let's talk about the specific metaphors he uses for reality. He talks about the door and the floor.
These are such brilliant, tactile metaphors. He describes a narrator standing at a closed door or arguing with a solid floor. The key concept he's illustrating here is that the given is the part of life you keep bumping into. It's the thing that resists you.
See, naturally, we usually hate that resistance. When I bump into a limit like I don't have enough time in the day or my knee hurts when I run, I immediately view it as an oppression. I see it as a direct threat to my personal freedom.
That is the absolute modern reflex. Limits are the enemy, boundaries are meant to be broken, but Thornberry flips that entirely on its head. He says limits are actually the prerequisite condition for freedom.
How does that work?
Think about language. You cannot speak or communicate without the given rigid rules of grammar and syntax.
Right.
If you just decided to reject the quote-unquote limit of grammar and you just made up your own random sounds, are you truly free?
No, I'm just making weird noises. Literally no one can understand a word I'm saying.
Exactly. You aren't free, you're just isolated. Or think about walking. You absolutely cannot walk without the given, unyielding resistance of the floor beneath you. If the floor didn't push back against your foot, if it didn't resist you, you just fall right through it.
You need the friction.
You need the limit to move. So true identity isn't about inventing someone in a frictionless vacuum. It's about recognizing who you actually are in relation to these immovable givens.
It's saying, okay, here is the solid floor, here is the heavy door, here's my aging body. How do I live well inside this specific house?
Exactly. It fundamentally shifts the core question of our lives from what can I possibly imagine to what is actually real.
And that leads us to what might be the most controversial part of reality today.
Morality.
Oh. Because Thornberry argues that morality itself is also a given, not just some arbitrary social construct. This is section 3 of his argument, and I think this is where the rubber really meets the road for that social flourishing idea we mentioned at the very beginning.
It's the linchpin.
We really like to think morality is just a personal preference, right? Like preferring vanilla ice cream over chocolate. Hey, you have your truth, and I have mine. You do you.
But Thornberry says conscience doesn't behave like a flavor preference. It behaves like gravity.
How so? Walk us through that.
He uses this fascinating thought experiment, the undeserved praise example.
Okay.
Imagine someone publicly praises you for something you absolutely didn't do. A heroic act, maybe, or a brilliant piece of work at your job. You get the medal, the loud applause, the big bonus check.
Sounds like a pretty good day.
Right. If morality were truly just about what works best for me or what maximizes my personal good feelings, you should be absolutely thrilled. You won the game. You got all the reward with zero of the effort.
But we aren't thrilled. We feel gross.
We feel gross. We feel this deep internal dissonance, a sort of moral nausea. We feel the overwhelming urge to confess and say, hey, actually, I didn't do that. That wasn't me.
Why is that? Why do we feel that if we're just self-interested animals?
Because conscience actively confronts us. It is external to our own willpower. This, Thornberry argues, proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are moral agents. We are inherently answerable to something outside of our own egos.
And this connects so directly to the concept of social flourishing. If everyone in a society actually believes morality is just a personal flavor choice, the entire society eventually crumbles.
It has to crumble. True social flourishing depends on the shared collective acknowledgement that morality is real. It's an objective reality.
Right.
Think about it. If I firmly believe that the rule "do not harm others" is just your personal opinion, then logically, why shouldn't I harm you the second it benefits me?
Exactly. If it gets me ahead, why not?
Real community, real flourishing requires a shared submission to a moral reality. We have to all be answerable to the same truth, or we just devour each other.
That makes total sense. Thornberry has this haunting image in the book of the narrator trying to live what he calls the clean life.
Oh, the clean life.
Yeah, a life with absolutely no obligations to anyone else, a purely rational, purely self-interested existence. And he says it didn't feel free at all. It felt thin.
Thin is such a deeply haunting word to use there. He says it felt like hovering slightly above the ground.
Hovering.
When you artificially remove obligation, when you try to strip away the weight of moral duty to other people, you lose all your traction. You can't actually move forward in life because your feet aren't touching the earth anymore.
Weight is absolutely necessary for movement.
It is.
So we need the weight of the floor to walk, and we need the weight of morality to live together, but we also need the weight of other people. And this brings us right into section 4, the relational self.
This section totally attacks the modern myth of radical autonomy. We deeply love the idea of the lone wolf, the rugged, self-made man, the person who needs absolutely no one.
It's the core of the American dream, right? Sinatra singing, "I did it my way."
Exactly. But Thornberry, and really any honest look at human biology or sociology, says this is a complete fantasy.
A delusion.
A total delusion. We are structurally relational creatures. We literally only learn who we are through collisions with others. Think about your infancy. You learned your own name because someone else said it to you.
You learned to smile because a face smiled down at you.
You learned language because someone spoke to you. You are woven out of other people.
He uses the metaphor of the cracked mug here, and I absolutely love this imagery. Tell us about the mug.
It's a beautiful image. Imagine a ceramic coffee mug that got cracked while someone was roughly washing it in the sink. It's still useful, it still holds coffee just fine, but it's permanently changed.
It's not pristine anymore.
Right, it has a history, it has a visible crack that only happened because of a direct collision with the edge of the sink. Thornberry says we are all cracked mugs. We are shaped, dented, and formed by our collisions with others. We aren't these pristine, factory-sealed units floating in space. We are handled.
And being handled, being involved with others, implies that other people have a legitimate claim on us. This is where he talks about love as a given.
Yes, and this is so countercultural. In our modern view, love is primarily a feeling. It's internal data. I feel love for you right now in this exact moment.
But feelings change constantly.
Feelings evaporate by Tuesday. Thornberry argues that true love isn't just a fleeting feeling, which is merely data. Love is a covenant.
A covenant. And he calls it an interruption. That is just such a hilariously real way to put it. Because honestly, let's be real, sometimes love is incredibly annoying.
It is. It's deeply, fundamentally inconvenient. True love almost always arrives as an interruption to your carefully laid plans.
You plan to sleep through the night, but your toddler is crying and throwing up.
You plan to finally get some work done, but your best friend is in a major crisis and needs you right now. You plan to save up for a nice vacation, but your aging parent suddenly needs expensive medical care.
And the claim, what the Thornberry calls the claim, is that love makes you answerable in those moments. You answer the phone at 2 a.m., you get up out of bed, you pay the hospital bill. Love looks at you and says you are answerable to this specific person.
And this part is vital for what we were talking about regarding positive growth. You absolutely cannot grow into a mature human being if you are never interrupted.
Yeah, more about that.
If your life is perfectly hermetically sealed against the messy needs of other people, you remain like a dry seed in a glass jar. You stay safe, but you never actually bloom.
Wow.
Genuine growth only happens when we are forcefully pulled out of our own self-referential little loops by the urgent needs of others. That is the very definition of a social existence, being deeply bound to one another.
Being bound. It sounds constricting at first glance, but again, tying back to the floor metaphor, it's the only way to actually have traction in reality. Okay, so let's recap where we are. We've established that we are given, we are inherently moral, and we are fundamentally relational. But that leads to the next massive question. What are we actually for?
Yes, teleology.
Right, this is the teleology section. And I know teleology is another one of those dense Greek philosophical words that usually makes people's eyes instantly glaze over.
It is, but I promise it's actually a very practical, everyday concept. Teleology is simply the study of purpose or end goals. It asks what a thing is designed to do.
Give us an example.
Think of a tiny acorn. What is an acorn fundamentally for?
It's for becoming a massive oak tree.
Right. And an eye. An eye is for seeing. So Thornberry turns that lens on us and asks the ultimate question. What is a human being actually for?
See, in modern culture, we never ask that. We usually just ask, what do I want?
Right. What makes me feel happy right now? But if you shift the question to, what am I actually built for?
Yeah.
You get a radically different set of answers.
He uses the plant analogy here, which I think makes it crystal clear.
It really does. Imagine you buy a beautiful houseplant, and you decide to put it in a pitch-black closet. But every single day you open the door and you say to it, I affirm you, you are a great plant, you can be whatever you want to be. If you want to be a fungus that grows in the dark, you be a fungus, live your truth.
You're literally affirming it to death.
Exactly. That plant is going to shrivel up and die because it fundamentally needs sunlight. It does not matter how much you verbally affirm it. Its core nature, its ontology, rigorously demands light.
So verbal affirmation cannot override biological or spiritual ontology.
Precisely. Humans have a specific given nature. Thornberry argues we are inherently ordered toward truth as opposed to living in an illusion. We are ordered toward love as opposed to mindless consumption. We are ordered toward integrity versus just putting on a daily performance. And we are ordered toward deep meaning rather than just chasing shallow pleasure.
So if you feed a human being a diet of lies, social isolation, and endless shallow pleasure, they will wither away, exactly like that plant in the dark closet.
No matter how much society tells them they are empowered, if you deny your teleology, you die inside.
This leads to a huge distinction that I think is a brilliant practical tool for our listeners. It's the idea of desire as data, not authority.
This is the practical application of everything we've been discussing.
Break it down for us, because modern culture explicitly says, if I feel it, it must be true.
Oh, absolutely. The modern mantra is, if I deeply desire something, that desire must be the truest core of my identity.
Right.
But Thornberry says no. Desire is just data. It's information. It simply tells you that something is currently happening inside you.
Like a dashboard light in a car.
Exactly. Maybe the data means you're incredibly lonely. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're carrying deep unresolved hurt. But desire itself is not the ultimate authority over your life.
So true wisdom is learning how to interpret that data, not just blindly obeying whatever it tells you to do.
Precisely. Let's use a simple example. If I have a sudden, intense desire to eat an entire chocolate cake by myself.
Which happens to the best of us.
Right. The data there is simply, I am craving a massive sugar rush, or maybe I am incredibly stressed out right now. But the authority of wisdom steps in and says, eating that entire cake will actually make you physically sick and deform your long-term health.
So we have to interpret our daily desires through the much larger lens of what we are actually for.
Yes. Just because you vividly feel a desire does not mean acting on it leads to human flourishing.
That makes perfect sense. Now, this brings us to the ultimate unavoidable test. How do we actually know in real life if our personal identity is weakly constructed, or if it's solidly grounded in the given?
Thornberry says you apply pressure, the stress test, suffering.
This is where the rubber truly meets the road.
It is. Suffering exposes the foundation. He talks about the inevitable collapse of constructed narratives.
So if my whole identity is built around a constructed narrative, like I am my soaring career success, or I am this perfect romantic relationship, or even I am my consistently happy mood, what happens when those specific things inevitably break?
The entire bridge falls into the river. If your core identity is, I am a successful executive, and suddenly you lose your job in a recession, you don't just lose a biweekly paycheck.
You lose yourself.
You functionally cease to exist. You experience a total existential collapse. That is exactly what a constructed identity does under real pressure. It's an elaborate bridge built entirely on loose sand.
But the given self that endures the storm.
The given self endures because it's rooted in bedrock. The given self says, I am a created creature. I am moral. I am deeply relational. I am answerable to others. Even if you lose that executive job, you are still every single one of those things.
The solid floor is still right there beneath your feet.
Exactly. Reality, even cold, hard, painful reality, can actually be stood upon. Illusions can't.
He makes a really sharp distinction between integrity and affirmation right here in the text.
It's a vital distinction. Affirmation basically tells you that you're perfectly okay no matter what you do. It flatters the ego.
Like the doctor with the broken leg.
Right. But integrity is alignment. It's the actual lived correspondence between how you walk through your day and the fundamental structure of reality.
Wow.
Thornberry has this brilliant, piercing insight. He says, we do not need endless cheap affirmation. We need structural alignment. Because alignment can endure profound grief. Affirmation entirely evaporates the second the sun goes down and things get hard.
That is powerful. Okay, so let's recap the journey so far. We've accurately diagnosed the problem. We're completely exhausted trying to be the sovereign creators of our own lives.
You're tired.
We've looked at the underlying reality.
Yeah.
We are fundamentally given, moral, and relational creatures. So how do we actually land this plane? What is the practical conclusion here?
Thornberry talks about what he calls the freedom of consent.
The freedom of consent. He goes back to a very physical bodily feeling for this, right? The chair analogy.
Yes. Think about the profound physical relief of finally sitting down in a sturdy chair and just letting it hold your body weight.
You finally stop holding yourself up.
You actively consent to being held by something stronger than you. Now, Thornberry is very, very careful here to distinguish true consent from mere resignation.
How are they different?
Resignation is just giving up. It's a passive defeat. It's sitting there saying, well, fine, I guess I'm stuck in this terrible reality. Life sucks, then you die.
A very cynical posture.
Right. But consent is deeply active. It is courageously saying yes to what is actually true.
It's the subtle difference between being unwillingly dragged down a hill by gravity and actively deciding to just walk downhill.
Exactly. The massive paradigm shift he's advocating for is to simply stop trying to desperately invent the ground beneath your own feet. Just stand on the ground that's already there.
And this ties perfectly back to our initial prompt about social flourishing and the current state of education.
Right.
We really have to stop the Leonard Nimoy search.
We absolutely do. We have to stop endlessly searching for mystical aliens or secret internal keys or magical psychological mysteries to explain who we are.
We departed from the true, ancient foundations of education, which historically was all about teaching young people what a human being actually is, fundamentally. We have to urgently return to reality.
And returning to reality means realizing that true positive growth isn't about becoming more of a constructed fictional brand you wrote for yourself.
No. True growth is becoming more of who you actually ontologically are.
It's becoming more integrated, more morally sound, more deeply relational, more aligned with your actual human teleology.
So if we had to distill a final takeaway from Jamie Thornberry's whole thesis, I love this specific summary from the text. You are not a project. You are a person.
That right there is the Thornberry principle in a nutshell. Ontology before therapy, reality before temporary relief.
And the ultimate relief isn't that life suddenly gets easy or painless. The relief is simply that you no longer have to carry the crushing weight of being the primary source of meaning in the universe. You just have to respond to the meaning that's already there.
You can finally put that heavy, handleless object down.
You can put it down. So as we wrap up this deep dive today, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final, provocative thought to mull over as you go about your week.
A little homework.
Exactly. Thornberry suggests this exercise in the text, and honestly, I think it's an absolute game changer. I want you to look at a specific, lingering frustration in your life right now.
We all have one.
Maybe it's a physical limit, a chronic health issue, or a financial cap you keep hitting. Maybe it's a deeply difficult person you're stuck working with or living with. Or maybe it's just a societal rule you really, really hate.
And instead of immediately asking the typical modern therapeutic question, how do I fix this external thing so I feel better internally? Or how do I manifest a new reality where this problem doesn't exist? Try asking the ontological question instead.
Ask yourself, what is this specific reality trying to patiently tell me about where I am currently standing?
What if that limit isn't actually a prison wall, but a solid floor? What if that frustrating situation isn't an enemy, but a strict teacher trying to show you exactly what you are?
Stop aggressively arguing with the floor. Just stand on it.
Stand on it.
Thank you so much for diving deep with us today. See you in reality.